Hey there, it's Tom Ryan, founder and CEO of ICR. Before we get into the next episode, I wanted to ask that you subscribe to the show. It'll help us get even more unique and interesting guests on the podcast and in turn continue to educate management teams and the growing ecosystem that creates value for fast-growing private and public companies. And while you're at it, head over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star rating. Very much appreciated.
About 10 years ago, she was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, which is a really difficult diagnosis. And she was told basically there's no options, go home and get your things in order.
We tend to measure the prosperity of publicly traded companies in terms of financial metrics like earnings per share or return on equity. But finding success in the field of medical technology can mean so much more than just profits.
She said, "Hey, Jim, your product saved my life. And I got to take my son to college a month ago and drop him off in his dorm, something that I was told I would never have the option to do."
Being a public company can be hard. Small missteps can have outsized consequences. I'm Tom Ryan, founder and CEO of ICR, and over the last 25 years, we've helped thousands of companies understand and navigate the stock market and the media. We'll demystify these and other increasingly complex stakeholder groups so you can focus on what you do best, building your company and unlocking your true potential. This is Welcome to the Arena from ICR. Innovating in the field of medtech presents a host of unique challenges. Formulating new treatments is a long and capital-intensive process. The regulatory regime for medical devices is extremely stringent. And even if you get approval, you still have to convince doctors that your treatment is safe and effective. Success in medtech R&D requires vision, tenacity, and most of all, an unwavering belief in the products you develop and their ability to save or improve people's lives. Jim Clemmer ticks all those boxes. He became CEO of AngioDynamics in April of 2016. The company trades on NASDAQ under the symbol ANGO. Prior to joining the company, Jim served as president of the multi-million-dollar medical supply segment at Covidien, where he directed the strategic and day-to-day operations for global business divisions that collectively manufactured 23 different product categories. In addition, he managed global manufacturing, research and development, operations, business development, and all other functions associated with the medical supplies business. Prior to Covidien, Jim served as group president at Kendall Healthcare, where he managed the U.S. business and built the strategic plan for the medical supplies segment before it was spun off from Tyco. He serves on the board of AngioDynamics and Lantheus Medical Imaging, and he graduated from the Massachusetts College of Liberal Arts, where he served as interim president from August 2015 to March 1st, 2016. Let's enter the arena with Jim Clemmer.
I've been in the medical device industry for most of my professional career. When our company, when Covidien was acquired in early 2015 by Medtronic, I had a chance to take a time out and step back and decide what I wanted to do with my life. I was serving on the board of trustees for a local college in Massachusetts, and our president had just gotten another opportunity and left there. So I was asked by our board to serve as interim president for a year while we did a search. But while serving, opportunities crossed my pathway from the industry again. And from those, I really liked what Angio was and what it could be. I thought I could impact that. So when I finished that role serving the college, I joined Angio in this role, but I was excited about making a transformation here and what I could do to maybe help that process.
And for listeners who don't know, maybe you can talk about the AngioDynamics mission, kind of what you all do every day with the senior team.
Well, the company was founded really to serve the interventional radiologist community over 30 years ago. Here in upstate New York, there were about 4 or 5 other catheter companies founded at this time. There was a lot of knowledge in the area. You had good material sciences experts. You had GE Plastics not far. So I think this area was an innovator in catheter sciences for years. So our company served that purpose. Over time, things change and companies need to adapt and evolve. I don't know if we did at that pace. So I thought that when I came in, I'd get the right management team here who would maybe take some risk, change the company, keep its historic foundation intact with our customers, but really move where you need to do in medtech, which is innovate and get to solutions faster. And that's what we tried to do, Tom, and that's what my team and I think about and try to do every day.
And I know the business model has evolved almost like managing a portfolio. Talk about that evolution, the timing of it, and where you stand today with the product portfolio that you have?
I knew when I got here, I would have to lead a charge of what I call active portfolio management, which is looking at things that were kind of in the past that served in the past
Yep.
and needed to be kind of maybe moved out of the portfolio. And on the other side, see what is here now that should be invested in more deeply, and maybe what wasn't here that we could maybe go add. So I think our team really adopted that strategy together in 2019. The board supported that idea. And we started with our largest divestiture, actually. At the time, it was our largest single business within the company, but it was a 50-year-old business. It was commoditized, and we weren't going to compete and win in that space for very long. So we sold it to a really big company that does that space well. And with a portion of those proceeds, we invested into actually an Israeli-based startup business with zero revenue, but a great science and a great engineering philosophy behind a way to treat peripheral arterial disease, a space that we wanted to get into. So really, Tom, that started the process that we still continue today of what we call active portfolio management. We move some things out that don't fit and invested in areas where we can grow.
There's a lot of competition in med tech and healthcare in general. What distinguishes AngioDynamics from other med tech companies, particularly in the vascular and oncology segments?
The challenge for us is that we're not a singularly focused company. We do more than one thing here. Even though we've divested some things and gotten more focused, we still do multiple product categories and serve our customers in different ways.
Yep.
And that's hard to do at a company our size. Most of the companies that do that well are the one that I used to serve at Covidien or a Medtronic or a Boston Scientific, these large multinationals that have a lot of resources and can balance a lot of things at once. But most companies our size actually do one or two things, really focused when they're small. So the challenge for us is try to act like a small company, to be nimble, creative, and fearless in some of the investment decisions we make, yet have the focus of a big company and the strength there. Not easy to do. So it's a challenge for us. We've learned along the way how to do that well. I think now we're really hitting our stride. Our portfolio is in a good place. Performance is supporting our mission. And I like where we've gone, but it's taken some learning to get there.
Yeah. How do you all collaborate with physicians and hospitals to make sure the devices you're bringing to market meet like real world clinical needs?
That's a great question. And that's evolved too, as our pathway has evolved. As we've moved into higher technology areas where we're really part of more acute care and life-saving and critical care decisions, we're involved at a different level of physician interest. So it starts in the field. We have a really great team around the globe of sales reps and clinical support partners that are talking to our customers every day. So bringing that knowledge in-house is really important. We've added medical advisory boards, brought physicians in-house to teach us and talk to us about what works today, what doesn't work, and kind of if they had a wish list, what would they do? We've tried to turn some of those wish lists into realities with our innovative design spirit. So those are some ways we do it. Beyond that, we've recently added a series of scientific symposiums that we sponsor around the globe, where we invite other physicians and even other companies to come in. Don't have to be all AngioDynamics people, talking about their technologies, or physicians talking about their ideas, and really sponsor just creative approach to solving some of these medical problems that exist today. So it's enabled us, I think, to elevate our presence in the physician community and to get really good feedback.
Yeah. Well, I know another solution you brought to market is the NanoKnife system, which recently received FDA clearance. Congratulations, for prostate tissue ablation. How does the NanoKnife system differ from the existing treatment options? What impact do you think it's going to have on patient care? And just generally, how do you see that rolling out over the coming years?
First of all, it's a really complicated science. I'll break it down simply. What NanoKnife does, it uses a generator that we'll put on site to a hospital. The generator supplies electricity through the probes that we sell, disposable probes. So a physician would use imaging guidance to surround an area that they want to treat. There's a tumor they want to treat. They'll use imaging guidance to get our probes to the right area. Then our generator would actually create a small electrical field around the targeted treatment zone. Then what that does creates nano-sized particles in the cell wall of that tumor we're looking to disrupt. What's really special about NanoKnife, it can disrupt that tumor, create a way for it to die naturally, let the body flush out then those cells in the normal process. But it doesn't disrupt or damage the surrounding tissue or the vascular structure. It's really unique and special. So what that does, it gives physicians a new way to treat in difficult to treat organs. We have a study we're going to launch the results to later this year called the DIRECT study, which showed how we could treat people with stage 3 pancreatic cancer, which is a really difficult treatment option for those folks. And what we think of the largest potential market for us is men with intermediate risk prostate cancer. And that's about 40 to 50% of the men diagnosed every year. And, prostate cancer isn't the fastest growing type of cancer, but men with a severe form need to have a radical prostatectomy normally. And that's a good treatment option for treating the cancer, but it leaves 2 side effects that are undesirable: incontinence and impotence in many of those patients. And what we think we could do with Nano is treat that organ and not have those side effects be part of life. And we proved that with our PRESERVE study and the data that we generated, which enabled the FDA to give us that clearance to come on site and on label back in December.
Yeah, very exciting. And I know that the Nano Knife system is part of what you would call your platform of medtech technologies. There also is AngioVac, AlphaVac, Orion. Maybe talk about those 3 and how it all fits along with the Nano Knife system into kind of this great platform that you've arrived at finally.
The medtech segment of our business is our fastest growing segment. It's where we're investing a lot of our assets and our resources over time. So today, the medtech segment is the Nano Knife, as we just talked about, to treat oncological disease. But our cardiovascular disease treatment, it falls in 2 different areas. We're really focused on keeping healthy blood flow to and from the heart.
Yep.
So keeping the venous system, veins, and the arterial system, your arteries, open and clear so blood can safely return to and from the heart. So our Orion system treats peripheral arterial disease, diseased arteries, uses a unique laser-based science to break up the calcium or plaque that hardens arteries and stops that blood flow. It's a really special product, and we've done a really great job launching it and now gaining a lot of market share based on how safe and effective it is. On the venous side, people look at something called VTE, or venous thromboembolism. We won't have a spelling test today.
Thank God.
But VTE is a combination of DVT, deep vein thrombosis, and PE, pulmonary embolism. These are really large and fast-growing markets that people are now seeing that catheter-based interventions like our AngioVac or AlphaVac are a good way to go in and treat, pull the clot out of the body, open up that vein for healthy blood flow, and not using the historical process of using lytics or drug therapies, which don't always work, they're not effective, and they have side effects that are undesirable. So today, Tom, we're part of the treatment changing, giving people a faster, more effective, and safe way to keep people healthy and safe with our innovative spirit and our design.
Talk about your commitment to R&D, technology, innovation. How do you think about that? How does the company execute in that area?
When we embarked on this process, we talked to our board and our employees, said we're going to enter these new markets. And they could be potentially more lucrative for us. We could treat more people and really bend the curve on healthcare and help more patients around the globe and help our company grow at a faster rate as well. But it does take investment, a lot of investment in the medtech world. We talked earlier about listening to our customers, coming up with ideas, innovative spirit and ideas. And then the design and development process can be long and expensive and difficult in this industry because you got to create a device that when it goes in the patient's body and comes out, they're safer and healthier than it was before you entered. So there's a high bar for all of us in this industry with the quality and the design elements of our products to make sure they're safe and effective. So that's not easy to do. Then you've got to get it approved by the regulatory bodies around the world. Here in the US, it's the FDA, and they're a great regulatory body that does a good job holding us accountable for the safety and design of our products. And then you've got to prove doctors they work. And that takes time and money too, to do studies and clinical data collection processes to prove they're effective. And then the selling and marketing, clinical people in the field to serve your customers. So investments here are expensive and the bars are high to do it right, but we've committed to do that here. So for the first few years of this transformation, we knew we'd also get to a spot where we would not return profitability in our bottom line each year. So we talked to our investors about that. And some investors like the long-term approach we take and some don't. And that's okay. So we've shifted our investor base. That creates choppiness with our shareholder base and our stock price. We knew it would. Now, what I didn't predict was we'd have a pandemic, healthcare, inflation go to the roof, and current stuff.
Come on, Jim. You didn't predict COVID?
0 for 3 on COVID, inflation, and now the macro environment we're facing today with tariffs. So I missed those 3.
There you go.
But during that, the company needed to be resilient enough and believe in our conviction in the directional change. And we have, based upon what we've created here, these science-based outcomes that work. It took 2 things to make this transformation. took knowledge of where we should be, where we shouldn't, and how to get there. And it took the courage to keep your foot down on the pedal during this stuff and investing. And you don't get it all right. R&D is an inexact science, doesn't always work. You got to try it. And neither is M&A. You might buy something that you thought would work and maybe it doesn't.
Yeah.
But you got to have both the knowledge and the courage to take a company through this process. And especially a small cap public company during this too. Challenges are high, but our team is great. And we're focused on doing this and delivering this transformation.
Jim makes a pretty compelling case for his decisions in terms of M&A and R&D, and they've led to some really exciting new products on the market. But as I alluded to off the top, the real reward for success in medtech can't really be reflected on a balance sheet or a P&L.
I wake up every morning. I'm a morning person. I love to look at my phone and my team that's overseas, over in Asia, they start earlier, obviously, and in Europe. And each morning, sometimes I'll get a picture of maybe a clot that we pulled out of somebody that was suffering from a PE, which is a really serious condition. And we helped save their life immediately with our new AlphaVac device.
Yeah.
And it shows how effective and safe it is to use, that even folks now just getting their hands on it can pull out that clot and make someone get up off the table and go home that day. But there's one story in particular that was really unique. It hit me about 6 months ago. I got to meet a patient that was treated 10 years ago with our NanoKnife product. So she was told about 10 years ago, she was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, which is a really difficult diagnosis.
Yeah.
And she was told basically there's no options. Go home and get your things in order. That's not what she stood for. So she did some research. She found that Nano was just launched, just barely in the market. But there was a doctor who believed it could treat things like this. And she kind of fought to see that doctor. He treated her. And I got to meet her just on her 10th year anniversary after the treatment last October, when she was told she wouldn't have been around. And she said, "Hey, Jim, your product saved my life. The doctor helped. And I got to take my son to college a month ago and drop him off in his dorm," something that I was told I would never have the option to do.
Oh, my God.
So that was an amazing story. And it really resonates with myself and all of us here. There are probably a lot more stories like that, but that one really hit home. That's our mission. It's what we do. And it really felt good to be a small part of that family's journey.
Are you communicating these outcomes regularly to your team? Like, how do you reinforce purpose and motivation for the team? Because I would think stories like that are very motivating to everybody around you at AngioDynamics.
You know, we do. We try to share these stories. And actually, it's great you asked. You know, we did an employee survey last fall and tried to ask our employees what we could do better, an engagement survey. And they told us they want to hear more than that, our team is mission-based people. And we all want to share in these successes and go home with that. It's what matters to us. So we've got to do a better job, and we'll do a better job at that. But our employees have said, share more of those. It really inspires us to know that things we made. We got people that assemble these products with their hands, touch them. They know that when they put it in a box and ship it, somebody's going to be on the other end of that device. And hopefully it's going to help their life. Or the folks that do the research, the clinical side, the marketing, the manufacturing, even folks here in the corporate office. We know that what we do supports those stories every day. So we've actually learned our employees want to hear it, and we've got to do a better job telling those stories, and we will.
100%. And maybe you can forward this podcast to everybody, and hopefully they'll be inspired by that story and some of the other ones that you have. How about the senior team, Jim? What qualities do you look for when you hire people, and maybe talk about the senior team around you that is out there executing every day?
It's a good point. When I was asked to join the company, I looked a little bit at the history, and I realized when I came here, I was going to be the 4th CEO in an 8-year period.
Oh, boy.
And I didn't know the other people, but I assumed they were probably pretty smart folks that were competent at what they did, but the company still struggled. So I knew if I came here, I had to really look at deeply what could be fixed, what was causing that to happen, and what could I do differently. And one of the things I knew I would do was to embark on change. I didn't know exactly what to change then, but I needed people who also had the knowledge and courage I mentioned earlier to adapt the same mindset. And I found those folks. We did that. Some were already here that we empowered to do things, to do new roles, and some we had to attract and recruit. It's not easy to do when you're a small cap company, based in upstate New York. I love living here. It's a wonderful spot. I'm not from here.
Yep.
It's a great place to be. But we had to get a really good executive team to start this journey with me and help lead this company transformation and lead our teams, because they would also all have to recruit new people, new talent, tell our story, show our mission, show our vision, and give reason and a purpose to people to join us, below the executive level. So we've done that. And our team is really strong and good. They believe in the mission I've articulated here with you, and they help to now build these teams who are executing, because I can't do it or we can't do it. it takes all of our engagement of all of our employees around the globe to do that. And we've got a great team, and the executive team is really responsible for that. And they've done a good job there.
100%. One thing I wanted to ask you, and you kind of touched on it very briefly, you're obviously an international company. How do you navigate all the varying landscapes in different regions, regulatory, culturally, all that kind of stuff? It just seems like a huge challenge. How do you approach it?
It is a huge challenge. I mentioned earlier how the regulatory process to get products like ours to markets around the globe, the burden's high. You got to prove to each country or each region you're serving that your products do pass that test of being safe and effective. So it starts with really good people that can do those things, and they can communicate in the local markets they serve. We've got the right people in the right places around the globe to be effective. But it's also coming down to us as a management team, deciding where we should serve and where we shouldn't, where we can be effective, and not spreading the peanut butter too thin, if that makes sense to you.
Yep.
Making sure if we pick an area or a region to invest in, we've got the right level of resources to do it right. And some we don't. And I'll give you an example. In my career here, I've been in this industry a long time. And one of the best areas that you can grow is Japan. It's a really wonderful marketplace. People really care about improving care and innovation, but it's also high burden to get into, and it's not easy to do.
Yep.
So early on when I got here, we were struggling in the Japanese market. And I realized we're just not ready for that. We're not able to serve that right. We don't have the right resources. So we pulled out and said, we'll let others do that market. We'll focus in other places. So sometimes, Tom, it's making those decisions where you should be, where you shouldn't, to make sure you can do it right.
Yeah. Where do you allocate your resources and capital and all that kind of stuff? We talked about technology. How does these emerging technologies like AI and machine learning and all that stuff, is that relevant to AngioDynamics? And if so, how does that play into the future, even if you looked out 3 to 5 years?
That's a funny question. My staff will laugh at me sometimes because I know the least about that.
Yeah, me too. I don't know anything.
I don't know much.
But you have to learn about it.
You got it. I agree. But what I learned is I can't drive an AI strategy. I don't know enough about it. And one day, the person who heads up our IT department, she's wonderful. She came running in my office, goes, Jim, I have kind of good news and bad news here. I go, what's that? She said, we have an employee out in the field close to our customers that created this really cool AI tool set they wanted to use. Now, it wasn't endorsed by corporate. We didn't go through the process. But the good news was it was innovative. And the spirit of our employee was engaging with a customer, trying to solve a clinical problem, using AI as a tool. So we love that spirit. So the challenge for us is how do we enable the spirit and the use of AI to come into our company and benefit us, benefit our customers and our patients that we serve, but also do it right. There's certain rules around how we do things, as you know, data security and enabling, a safe process to keep our data secure and communicate to our customers is important. So we're learning that process, but it was fun to see it came from the bottom up at the customer-based clinical level. And it'll make it to my level soon, but our team is going to do much more than I can with it.
Yeah, it makes all the sense in the world. You talked about being a smaller cap company, but it seems like there is a lot of operating leverage in the model, and you also have a good balance sheet. When you look at the economic model and the leverage in the model and the balance sheet, what gets you excited about that?
We've made a lot of investments here that are now going to pay off for us. As you said, create that leverage through our P&L. This year, we proved it. We become EBITDA positive this year. So for the first time in a couple of years, we're actually dropping now EBITDA to the bottom line while still investing for the future.
Yep.
And I think what you said, our P&L that we've created, it's efficient, it's effective. We're still going to invest where we should. But now we're going to see the fruits of those investments pay off. The new revenue we bring in, it's going to come in at a higher gross margin because our sales growth is coming from those new areas that we're innovative. And so over time, the P&L will benefit by our increased growth in the next 5 years. The plan we have is really strong. The revenue we bring in will drop through that P&L and give investors who are looking for not just revenue growth, but profit. You're going to see that. On the balance sheet side, we've also shown that even during turbulent times, during the pandemic and when cash flow and other things were issues, we didn't dilute our shareholders. We had the capital necessary to balance our investments, keep our base strong. Today, we're a company with zero debt on our books, all the cash we need to fund our investments to go forward. And next year, which starts June 1 for us, we have a unique fiscal year. We've told our investors to expect us to break even on cash flow and become cash flow positive next year. So the last couple of years, we have utilized operating cash to fund our operations and investments, but now stops going forward. So we'll be a company that will grow the top line at a higher than average rate. We'll add profitability through the P&L, and we'll grow our cash balance over years. That's a really compelling thesis, I believe, for investors to look at. But today, that's new news. So I think we're still undervalued. People don't see that yet. And we've got to prove it too. have our results stand and show that over time. And I think we'll get more confidence from investors when we do that on a consistent basis.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. A lot of the heavy lifting is behind you, and it's a great time to be looking at the company. I guess my last question, Jim, is when you look at medtech, out in the next 5 to 10 years, what do you think happens in your industry, and how does AngioDynamics fit into it?
Yeah, I joined this industry over 30 years ago and have served different roles in different companies. But the thing that I'm most proud of is how this industry has enabled people to live longer, and the quality of life has gotten better as well. So here at Angio, we believe in that mission. So we know that every day our products touch people. And when they leave their body, the person's healthier than they were when we started. And I think we're contributing with our other fellow companies in this space to that overall mission.
Medical technology is one of those things you hope you never need, but when you do, my God, you're glad it's there. And thanks to a full suite product platform that's helping improve outcomes for several serious conditions, AngioDynamics is bringing that sense of relief to more and more patients every day. And now, their continued appetite for innovation, along with a strong balance sheet and great results, means the company's future could be very bright indeed. At Welcome to the Arena from ICR, we're working really hard to bring you exciting guests and great content. If you found this episode insightful, please subscribe to the show on your podcast app and leave us a 5-star rating. The more the show grows, the more interesting voices we can have on the podcast, and in turn, that should demystify a lot of the stakeholders around public companies and soon-to-be public companies. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks to Jim Clemmer, whose leadership has helped AngioDynamics successfully navigate their way through some very difficult market conditions. They've re-engineered their portfolio behind growing market segments, and they are really well situated to be a force in the medtech space for years to come. It'll be an interesting chat with Jim again in the future as the company progresses further towards their goals. This is Tom Ryan. We'll see you next time back in the arena.
References to specific stocks are not intended to be recommendations for specific trading behavior. Comments presented on this podcast are intended for informational and educational purposes only, and do not represent opinions or recommendations on whether to buy, sell, or hold shares of a particular stock. All investors are advised to conduct their own independent research into individual stocks before making a trading decision. In addition, investors are advised that past stock performance is no guarantee of future price performance.